Hi, everybody. I'd love to connect with you in person. I teach yoga and meditation in New York City almost every day, and I also teach a movement class called Senmo, which stands for Sensual Movement for the Modern Woman. In this class, we look at how feeling confident, sexy, and powerful in our body translates into the rest of our life. You can find all the info about that at ellieaaron.com. You'll also find a free beginner's yoga video and a free Senmo video, so you can try out these practices at home, and you'll get weekly love notes from me and these podcast episodes straight to your inbox. Also, I'd be so grateful if you took a moment and subscribed to the show on iTunes. And while you're at it, give us a 5-star rating. That is so helpful. And if you love the show, please share it with your friends. I appreciate you so much. Thanks for listening. Now, let's get back to the show. Welcome to the Ellie Aaron Hour. Spirituality, feel at home in your body. Philosophy, meditation, psychology, sexuality, yoga, and relationships. Join us as we explore what it means to be truly human, to live a life of passion and compassion, joy and sadness, work and play, and of course, tons of love. Ready to begin? Let's go.
Check, check. Hey, hey, hey.
All right, here we go. Welcome to the Ellie Aaron Hour, everybody. I am so excited and just really honored. And this man that I have with me today is one of my favorite human beings. And we have a really long history together. And now he is getting famous in the world and changing the world via his art. And his name is Michael Blume. Hi, Michael.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here on the Ellie Aaron Hour.
Yes. So let me tell you a little bit about Michael Blume, everybody. So Michael Blume is a professional recording artist on BMG Curve Records, and he recently debuted a single called Manufactured Love, which topped the Spotify viral charts and gained record industry attention. Yeah, Michael. His debut EP, When I Get It Right, came out summer 2016. And he has sold out multiple New York City shows in 2016 with his electrifying 11-piece band. He self-identifies as a progressive R&B artist. He's a pop soul style with a queer political edge. Yeah, so if you look him up, you'll already see kind of like this magic and uniqueness coming out of him. There's more touring happening for him in 2017. And then a full-length album due this year. Woo, so cool. And he is having a show coming up at the Bowery Ballroom on January 24th, 2017. So you guys can check that out. And the links for that will be at the Ellie Aaron Hour podcast. So, Michael, I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for that great introduction.
Thank you. So, all right, let's take it back a little bit.
Okay.
We met sophomore year of high school.
Right. Not freshman year. I forget that.
Yeah, sophomore year. When I moved to New Jersey, to Montclair, New Jersey, which is where you grew up.
Right.
And I didn't have any friends. And I was kind of a loser.
No.
A little bit. When I first moved, I mean, I just didn't know anybody. And then... you kind of like took me under your wing a little bit. And this is how it kind of works with Michael. When you're friends with Michael, you get exposed to so many incredible people because you know so many incredible people. And I don't know if people know this about you, but you were the president of our class. You had a huge part in the arts community in Montclair High School.
Sure.
You were valedictorian, and you were kind of the shit. Like, you really were. And
I was a sad closeted the shit, but yeah.
Well, we can get into that too. But I just so appreciate how we really created a friendship. And via us being friends, I felt like really safe and just like happier, and just was exposed to this amazing world of the arts that we had in our high school. And so thank you for being my friend then.
Well, thank you. I mean, I feel like our relationship early on really curated and supported exploration and comfort and support and all that stuff. So it's cool now to be here, like literally more than 10 years later, on your podcast, doing my thing, you're doing your thing. It's like very exciting.
It's pretty amazing,
It's
right?
pretty amazing. Totally. Yeah.
It's amazing how far we've both come.
Very far, ups and downs. I think our relationship is really an example of just like maturity and growth, like, I mean, obviously I'm talking to you here, but I'm talking to listeners too. Like, just background on our relationship is just that, like, we were really, really close, probably too close, just like in that 17-year-old kind of addicted to each other way. And then we kind of had, I wouldn't even call it a falling out. I would just call it like differences, and kind of like grew apart for a little bit. But then I feel like in the last few years, we've grown back together. And even though we don't see each other as much, I feel such a sense of warmth and respect, mutual respect for each other, that I'm really grateful for. And I've learned so much from you and all that you do and your multi-pronged hustle here in New York with the show and with your meditation and your yoga and your guidance. Anyway, this now is turning into whatever. But anyway, so I'm really glad to be here too. And I know we have a lot to talk about.
We definitely do. Yes. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's really amazing to see how far we've both come. And I think going back to sort of our relationship in high school, I think that was my first real view on like you said, like addictive intimacy. Like I think we were both addicted to.
That's the first starred vocabulary word of this podcast. Capital A, capital I, addictive intimacy.
I'm making it up. I mean, I don't know if it's a thing or not, but I think it is. It's addicted to sort of the high that you get from different ways that you validate each other. Uh-huh. And I think I validated you in a lot of ways, and you validated me in a lot of ways, in good ways and in challenging ways. Mm-hmm. But
I think we also excluded people. And I think that we kind of validated each other through, I mean, this is like maybe too harsh on ourselves, but putting down other people, again, in that like teenager kind of bitchy, immature way. Like, I think that we had social collateral for high schoolers and used it in, not uncommon ways. And I don't think we were bullies, but I think we were really excited to hang out with each other and make it publicly known that we had this deep affection for each other. Which is interesting because I've been aware now more and we're going to I hope talk about sexuality and all that. I've been more aware now as a grown-up gay man of the fact that I have a history of becoming really close with straight women, like in a way that I think many gay men, straight women do. I feel like if I look at the last 10 years of my life, it's almost like I'm a serial monogamist, but I wasn't having sex with these people because they were straight women that I had these extremely intimate relationships with. And for better and for worse, much like being a serial monogamist in a traditional romantic sense, I think there are pros and cons of organizing your life around certain kinds of relationships. And I think that straight women find certain things in gay men that they're able to latch on to, they're able to find support in, they're able to manipulate, they're able to work. And similarly, vice versa, I think gay men are able to find things in straight women: comfort, support, manipulation, good and bad shit.
Totally.
I'm allowed to curse, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. In both healthy and unhealthy and just complicated ways.
Totally.
I think that my masculinity brings authenticity and power and validity in a male-dominated world. I think it's meaningful for a woman to and problematic and complex for a woman to unite and join forces, so to speak, with a man, even if he is gay, because he still has some male power, less than a straight man, let's say. And simultaneously, I think, from the gay man's perspective, there's, sometimes validity in even, some days when I'm dressed less flamboyant, I'm dressed more traditionally masculine, so to speak, and I might read as heterosexual, which sometimes I do, I think, depending on my context and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I become aware, even if I'm with a girlfriend of mine, of what I call straight privilege. Just like, even if we're not holding hands, sometimes I am holding hands with a girl on the subway platform, or whatever. I see the ways people look at me and they think I'm with that girl, and it's a different gaze.
Wow.
It's a different respect. If it's a different sense of validity, authenticity, power that I'm become aware of, versus if I'm, with a girl, but I'm clearly presenting as gay, and I'm just like the fag that girl is hanging out with.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, so I think that dynamic has been a big part of my serial monogamy, and I say serial monogamy, in a non-sexual sort of, platonic way in terms of my relationships with straight women.
Wow. So there's a way that you get validated by being around and having intimacy with straight women that you enjoy by people gazing you at certain ways.
That I benefit from.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think the straight women also benefit from having a man around them, but they don't, but then they know that there's not the pressure or the, the pressure of sex or traditional romantic, underpinnings there.
Totally. Yeah. So going back to, sophomore year, you weren't out, right? Like, I remember us being friends and really close friends and having really, really long discussions, which is long. And it was really beautiful. I think there was so much that I just discovered about myself and about the world, and again, about intimacy and just this way of relating where you can just talk for hours and hours and hours and just explore reality together. And one of the things that we really explored was sexuality and your sexuality and how you were feeling about it, and how kind of living this interesting life where people outside of you saw you as you said, the successful, like, I am, valedictorian, I'm the leader and all these things, but inside of me, there's this part of me that isn't known yet in the world, and how you felt then. And then now really being very open and public about your sexuality. That's a really dynamic shift. Like, that's a really interesting shift. And obviously the world is becoming more and more comfortable with it, but there's still obviously so much fear around sexuality and the different ways we all express ourselves that way, and needing to really like label what and how we are in the world sexually. So yeah, just curious about like that incredible shift in the past 10 years of how that's really evolved, and kind of going back to those challenging conversations we had when you kind of were like, I don't know what my parents will think, and I don't know, like, if
Do you remember me saying specifically that?
Absolutely. I remember you saying,
I don't remember saying that specifically.
I hope it's okay. I'm saying this, but
we'll edit it out.
We'll edit it out if not. But I remember you saying, like, if I go to my dad and I tell him that I'm gay, like, just like uttering those words and having that thought, like first of all, like, I don't want to disappoint him, and like the emotional breakdown that I would feel internally, just by even uttering and saying those words, like not even like being able to say that to your parents. Yeah. So how, like, from that to where you are now, where you're like, I am a gay queer artist, and this is my mission to, stop the stigmatization and all of the things around this world, all the hate and really all the fear around it. Because even if it's hate, it's people that are afraid because it's an unknown thing to them, right?
Yeah.
So all of that.
Well, where to begin? I think that, where do I begin here? One of the narratives that I've developed in recent years is definitely one in which I imagine high school Michael. I was a overachiever, really good grades, like you mentioned, top student, various leadership positions and clubs and shit. And I definitely have woven a narrative for myself where I feel like a lot of that quote unquote success was overcompensation for a sense of lack of self-worth that I had internally in a deep, truly unconscious place for until later in high school. Certainly when we first met sophomore year, I wasn't even close to identifying as gay. I had crushes on girls, or I told myself that I had crushes on girls. And, you know, I think deep down in a place, I felt a distance from traditional masculinity. Because, and I just spoke about this in another interview, actually, I feel like so much of what I learned as traditional masculinity and valid masculinity as a penis-bodied human was being a vagina-craving human.
Wow.
So it was like, okay, if you have a penis, it's not even just how you talk and dress and do that. It's also about wanting pussy, impregnating pussy, and having children, really, you know. And that's sort of now is touching on larger ideas about family structure in my community, in sort of secular New York Jewish upper middle class communities where marriage and family and children are hypervalued, in my opinion, and overvalued and really exclude and can cause a lot of pain for not just gay people like me, but just any kind of non-conforming, queer, gender fluid, polyamorous person. So anyways, I think I overcompensated. Then I was lucky that towards the end of high school, honestly, I had you, Ellie, and, you know, a few other close friends who I wouldn't even say I came out to you guys because I wasn't even ready to do that. I think I remember saying things to you like, I don't know, maybe I'm 10% bi, maybe I like, you know, whatever. Even in college, I remember talking to friends and saying, oh, I just like people. I don't need a label. Fuck labels. I just like people, and usually they have penises and whatever. And so, should I keep going through college? I could talk about high school more. I mean, I don't know if I should go on a chronology here or what piqued your interest there? That's me a follow-up.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I think college is interesting, like when that started shifting, because you were also out of the house at that point.
Well, actually, I wanted to go back because you mentioned saying the words "I'm gay," and I do remember in high school, like early sophomore, junior year, I remember first just playing with those words, and I remember. I have a distinct memory at some point of being on a computer in the basement where I used to do work, where we used to hang out and talk so many times. And I remember I opened up a Word document and I was supposed to write a paper or for class or whatever. But I was thinking about these issues, and I remember I couldn't even say it, but I typed, "I'm gay." And I remember like freaking out and like quickly backspacing, delete, because I literally couldn't even type it. I have a similar memory where I remember being in the house alone. No one was even there, and I remember I remember wanting to try to say it, and I remember whispering it to myself. No one was even in the house. I was home alone, and I could not put my vocal cords to work to say that. So I had also what I just a lot, and I'm still very much battling this of internalized homophobia and stigmatization, where I had this sense of the word gay had all these other meanings. If you were gay, you were HIV positive. If you were gay, you were a flamboyant faggot walking down the street, waving purple flags and glitter everywhere, and your life was meaningless. You can laugh. You know, in your life was going to be short because you were going to die of AIDS, and no one was going to like you, and you weren't going to have a family, and honestly, and I said this too in this other interview where we talked about a lot of this, I am really grateful to the Obama administration because we're talking about 10 years ago. I mean, 8 of those 10 years have been Obama's presidency, in which I really think that the national consensus on LGBTQ issues and ideas has gained, it's just grown exponentially in the last 8 years. And so I'm grateful for that. And I'm also grateful for going to school then, so to fast forward now to college, at a place where there were models for the first time in my life. I got to college and there were models of gay men, openly gay men, who were not defined and consumed by their desire for cock. And I use that terminology, desire for cock, because I think that for me, one of the important pieces of it is, and one of my important things that I'm battling is the actual the resisting
of that being your only label.
Yeah, like the idea that, because we talk a lot about being gay, and I think one of the things that people are afraid of is like actually the sex. Because again, we go back to that early definition of masculinity that I said, and you're a man if you crave pussy, and if you crave cock and ass sexually, I'm really talking on a physical level here. That to me was the thing that made me sinful, evil, different, bad, you know. And I didn't grow up in a religious community that taught me those kinds of things, but
it's so ingrained.
That kind of rhetoric is deeply woven into our cultural fabric. I mean, we live in a Judeo-Christian world where like Judeo-Christian ideas about sexuality and family and correct conduct are really, really integrated into the threads of how we perceive one another. And so I actually wrote an article my junior year in college, finally really coming out and really claiming the word gay. So the first couple of years of school, I kind of was exploring and whatever, but it took me a couple of years to really claim and be proud in the word gay and realize that it wasn't just about sex for me, but it really was about a political movement and a political ideology that aimed to question a lot of the assumptions about attraction and family structure and desire and what was acceptable and what wasn't. And I mean, we can get into this maybe a little bit, but for me, that's now evolved into a piece of me that identifies very much as a queer artist and a queer thinker, which for me is distinct from my gay identity. You know, for me, the queer thing is less about my desire for cock and more about my desire to question the systems that have been put in place that I've thought that I had to work within and been confined to for much of my life. But now I'm trying to question those systems. You know, what does it mean to love? What does it mean to be a lover? You're my lover. You know, but traditionally that's an idea that like, oh, you have to be fucking. But like, no, we love. I reject the idea that only people who are having sex get a monopoly on the word lover. You know, question what it means to commit to someone. What is commitment? What is family? You know, and then how do these questions intersect then with ideas of nationality and immigration and women's rights and education and healthcare? You know, so now I've moved a little bit beyond the like my fear and whatever about who I want to be fucking. It's kind of like whatever, I'm fucking who I want to fuck, and then
with consent.
With consent, always, absolutely. Thank you. But now I have a little bit more of a global political identity.
I love that. Totally. Yeah. And I mean, it's very real, right? Like, I think people still have these very clear ideas of what a gay person is and what a straight person is and how in general we're supposed to behave, right? Like, and it's very real too that there's still very heavily the Judeo-Christian tradition, which is just pretty much still the norm for most of, I think, America, you know, and yeah, I mean, the idea that you can be gay and yet it doesn't have to be your whole identity is just an interesting thing in general, because I think what ends up happening for people is because it was such an intense thing to get over, then they make it part of their whole personality and their whole day-to-day life. But that's an interesting thing too, you know, that's an interesting idea when that is what ends up happening. So yeah, I mean, because in one sense it can be like, oh yeah, I'm gay, like whatever. But in the other sense, like, no, like you do have to make. I'm
gay now and I'm going to be the loudest queen I fucking can be.
Right, which is fun. Exactly. Which is dope too. But
everyone's living.
Everyone's living, and you should be able to just choose however you want to do all of this,
and
right?
You know what? And if you want to do it one way on a Monday and another way on a Tuesday, that's also cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't have to be one distinct thing.
If one day you feel like letting the whole world know that you are a big fat cocksucker and you want to wear a t-shirt that says cocksucker and heels and a fucking queen crown on the D train, then you are. And the next day you could wear Nike tracks, whatever.
And you play a lot with that, sort of the imagery at which you put on and how you portray yourself to the world. Is that a very conscious choice? Like, yeah. And then looking at sort of the feedback that you get from your environment, which we kind of talked about as well, but also as a performer, right? Playing with that and then who you are day to day. Yeah. Is that all a conscious choice?
Let me ask, I'm going to throw this back at you, Ellie. Talk about your presentation. Are you conscious in how you wear and present yourself? Or do you just, quote unquote, naturally do what you naturally want to do?
I think I'm conscious of it. I think I'd be way more conscious of it. I think I kind
Could
of
be more conscious?
Yeah, I think I kind of just put on clothes and, I'm kind of like the yogi that travels all day and it's like, oh, yoga clothes or yeah, it's not something that I really, really think about heavily. No, I would like to. I think it's interesting, but it's not really that.
I think I'm going to challenge you
mind.
on that and say, you saying you don't think about it heavily, but you're a yoga instructor. So day to day, your day to day is going to work and teaching yoga. So most of the clothes you have or most of the clothes you're wearing are yoga clothes that you bought from yoga stores because you're a yoga teacher, so you got to be wearing that shit to go to work. That sounds conscious to me. That sounds like you put thought and effort and intent into how you're presenting yourself, right?
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah.
So this is, and I'm not. I say that because I've been really struggling with this question. Not struggling, but back and forth. And this is a little bit what we were just talking about over salad, which is the this issue that I've been thinking a lot with around surrounding the curation of the self.
Yes.
I want to challenge and provoke gender norms, okay? Because I see how constructed they are and I see how the constructs can hurt people. From my own experience, I was hurt by the constructs. I was left out by the constructs. I was rejected and sad and ended up, doing the whole overcompensating and succeeding in school, which was great, but then really catching up on being a grown-up and being, and loving and understanding myself and loving myself, frankly. So I want to shine a light on how these constructs fuck with people, how they hurt people, how silly they are, how made up they are. I do that in a number of ways. One of the ways in which I do that is through my querying of my presentation, my using a variety of traditionally feminine and masculine clothing, makeup, nails, my general presentation. I aim to confuse and mix up what we generally see as this binary. Now, some of that, or all of that, or none of that, is my taste. I just like the way that dress looks on me. I am aware that dress is going to turn heads when I wear it on the subway. Where the line is in terms of how much I'm choosing to wear the dress just to turn heads and how much I'm choosing to wear the dress because I fucking like the dress, where that line is, I do not know. And some days it's over here and some days it's over here. But at the end of the day, does it matter? You know what I mean? I had a conversation with someone very close to me recently. And it was a conversation about the word lover, actually, which we were talking about just now. And I've been definitely trying to reclaim the word lover, from the people who say, oh, you can only call them a lover if you're having sex with them. I don't like that. I think that we should have a different word for someone you're having sex with, maybe a sexual partner. What a fucking idea, right? I had a conversation where I described a lover of mine who was a woman who is someone I'm very close with, and I would describe it myself as in a committed relationship with her. And I described that relationship as a lover to this person. And this person kind of asked me, why are you saying that? You know that you're provoking with that question, with that word. You know that that's not how that word is traditionally used. Are you doing that just to provoke, or do you really feel that way? Basically, how conscious is that same question you're asking, essentially? And the answer is yes and no and all of it and none of it. I genuinely feel that this person is my lover. I refuse to bend to the colonial ideas that you can only have a lover if she's your wife and you're fucking her and you're having kids with her. But at the same time, I am aware of those rules and I'm aware of that system, and I'm aware that my use of the word lover and my linguistic deviance is complicating and breaking those rules. And so, yes, I'm aware that I'm provoking you, and yes, I'm aware that it's gonna kind of not sit with you right away. But you know what else I'm aware of? I'm aware that it's gonna cause you to ask yourself a question, and that question is, where am I getting my definition of lover from? How is my definition of lover inclusive or exclusive of the people around me? So in terms of are the things I do conscious or just what I like? I don't know. I mean, all of the above, like I definitely find it to be a mission of mine to provoke questions and to help. Like I want to be the person holding a flashlight and shining a light on that thing in the corner that like we're all listening to that thing in the corner and doing what it says. Excuse me, but we didn't even know it was there. So I'm going to shine the light on it. I might not even say anything about it, but now the light's on it, so we can't ignore it.
Totally. So good. Yes. And I think we need to even just define what lover is, right? Like, what is a lover? I mean, and I have an idea, but I want to hear yours. Like, what is a lover?
Right. I mean, I guess for me, a lover is someone who you feel committed and reciprocal love for and with. Now there are people who would challenge me, and I'm aware of their challenges, and there are some great challenges to the narrative I'm weaving here, and I recognize that. People who say, okay, great, well, that's your lover now, you're 27, and great, that's your lover, your platonic female friend or whatever. Who's going to be holding you when you're 65 and when you're 80 and you need someone then? And the people who say that are right in that our system as it currently stands is set up to have two people who commit to each other for life, and those are the two people that are there for your whole life. I understand that is how our system is set up, and I understand that one way to succeed, and probably the easiest way to succeed, is by following those rules and picking that path. I dream of a world in which there are other options and paths to a lifetime of love. That is not necessarily built and defined and constructed on the basis of two humans who fuck each other, who have a 55% divorce rate, have kids, and live in a house together. And this is not shade or any finger wagging to people who happily and successfully live that life.
Right.
Because that's beautiful. And frankly, most of the people that I love live like that,
right?
And have a partner and have a lifelong partner, and it's monogamy theoretically, and they have kids and they live in a place, and like they have that traditional family romantic structure unit.
Totally. And
I have no problem with that. My problem is the fact that that's sort of the only option, and that's the only way to have that quote unquote success. It's the only way to be fully accepted, to be fully authentically a successful adult. So much of our social success is defined by our family outcomes.
Totally.
And I reject that, and I imagine a world where we can creatively come up with other systems that allow for more diverse approaches to life organization.
So beautiful. Yes, exactly. I mean, really the whole monogamous partnership of the idea of a man and a woman, this classic vision that we all have in our mind, is pretty modern. I mean, I don't know exactly historically, but there were times when, men had a lot of wives, and maybe women potentially, had many lovers, right? And obviously there's certain animals that have very different structures than we do. So that's interesting to look at nature as well. But sort of like what naturally wants to come through, not what society is teaching you, but could we have many lovers? Could we have...
Well, I do.
Right. But exactly.
Do you mean, and I don't even mean sexually.
Just lovers in general.
I have many non-sexual lovers. And that's kind of what the agenda I'm promoting here. The idea that like we have this, we're tied up here in this place and time in America in 2016, where we've confused and compounded love and sex.
Right.
And they are two wonderful, distinct things that sometimes happen together, sometimes don't happen together.
Totally.
And I know there are people who are out there rolling their eyes at me right now, and I hear you.
That's just what we've been taught, though. You're right. Love and sex go together. Can we have sexual partners where, there isn't a certain love, but there is an intimacy, but it isn't quite like the really intense sort of weaving that happens in when
Traditional
people
romantic love.
exactly
Yeah.
right. Like there's so many different models of how we can really. To me, the question is, how can we have intimacy that's really fulfilling and nourishing and really feeds us on like a soul body level? I mean, that's the question. And I think what you're saying is, how can we find different and maybe ways that aren't common to go about truly fulfilling this very basic need to just connect as human beings and really exploring that. You're saying, let's find exploration. Let's be the Christopher Columbuses of...
Maybe not Christopher Columbus.
Maybe not, yeah, I was going to say.
We don't like him anymore.
Who else do we have? Right? Like
Neil Armstrong.
Neil
The guy on
Armstrong.
the moon or whatever.
There you go. Like, of explorers of how to really essentially create intimacy. And is the question building more communities that have larger groups of people that are more intimate together, right? Like what?
And it's a massive restructuring. This is not an easy task. This is not like, oh, I'm going to go do this. This is, it's more than anything theoretical, frankly.
Right now.
I mean, right now. I feel like I live right now as a 27-year-old independent artist in New York in a supportive, loving community of people of various orientations and genders and sexes, and I feel very supported by that community. I know that some with a more traditional view on some of these topics, again, might challenge me and say, okay, that's cute now that you're healthy in 27. What is that going to look like for you in 40, 50, 60 years? And those are great questions. And again, I don't have like a let's go, let's get ready, but I challenge those folks with the more traditional views to try to understand how my experience and my feelings have been excluded, and there hasn't been a space for me to participate in the structures that they have benefited from, that their orientations and inclinations and role playings have been able to follow those scripts in a way that, the system has been designed for them. I ask them to try to have some empathy and understand that the system has not necessarily worked as successfully for everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that. So, yeah, do you yearn for more of the traditional romantic
I hate you for asking that.
partnership?
I love that.
Yeah, like here's sort
Again,
of
the full 360. here.
yeah, baby. Here's the like rebuttal towards
Right.
all of it, but here's this other side. Like, do you really yearn for this
And
partnership?
my question to your question, and it's a fucking great question, goes back to what we were just talking about in terms of intent and conscious. You asked me, do I wear the dresses just to be conscious, or do I wear it just to provoke people? Well, if I do yearn for traditional romance, do I yearn for it because I really just want it, and deep inside, despite all my queer political ideologies, I actually just want a nice husband to take home, and now gay people can get married too.
I don't know, do you?
Or have I been so overwhelmed with that narrative that I and all of us have tricked ourselves into thinking that that's what we need? That's
I think
what
it's a
success
little
looks
bit
like.
of both.
You do?
I mean, that's my projection of you, but
Okay, now you're projecting on me.
but who knows? I'm not sure.
I mean,
I think
go ahead.
the two are always gonna. Again, I think the need for intimacy is really important. The
Physical
way
intimacy.
all of it, intimacy, emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, all of those things are very important, right?
Do you think-
And if the idea of getting I'm going to get sex from this person, not get, but I'm going to have lovely sexual intimacy with this person. I'm going to have sort of an emotional intimacy with this person.
And I'm good.
Right. And sort of kind of get fed in different ways, and sort of like the merging of the two, sex and emotional intimacy, and really having like a best friend, which is pretty much the idea that everybody has, is who you're supposed to marry. Yeah, like sort of like the different ways
What about
of going
music?
about
I'm a
that.
musician, so I can let's say I find sex and emotional intimacy in this one person, but in this other person I find sex and musical, but no emotional, or emotional and musical. Why is the sex and the emotion necessarily, again, anyways, that's where I would push back. But let me answer your question, which was a good question. And the answer is yes. I do have a curiosity, despite everything I just said for traditional romance. And the reason I have that is because a lot of people I love, like I said, have described to me their happiness, their joy with traditional romantic structures. I think it's notable and worthwhile that I have not had a long-term traditional romantic partner. And, you know, I sometimes wonder if I've just made up all these theories because I'm mad and because this is just a giant psychological defense mechanism. And so my response to like me not having a boyfriend is, well, you know what, fuck boyfriends, fuck all that. But it's like, well, then why don't I have a boyfriend? Because I'm ugly? Because I'm stupid? Because I'm not talented? No, I'm not any of those things. I'm hot and smart and a fucking successful recording artist. I'm a fucking great catch. So am I just crazy? I don't understand. Like, so it leads to this circle for me where I'm pretty uncertain. But I do know, like I said, that these people I love and trust, including my parents, who are happy, who are married for a long time now, like I see that, and I don't think that they're lying. I think they might be slaves to a system, but you know what? Like, that raises another question of like, if you're a slave but you don't know anything else and you're just happy, maybe you just fucking take that and walk. I don't know. A lot of people my age too have boyfriends, girlfriends. They're very happy. They're good, and so there is a piece of me that has a curiosity about that, and I'm open to that. I'm open to that coming. I'm open to that being a thing, but I simultaneously have all the questions that we just kind of laid out around that desire. So I'm trying to be open to all of it, but it is hard because then it's like, well, again, are you open to it, or now you just open to it because you feel like you should be open to it? Are you wearing the dress because you want to wear the dress? Or are you wearing it just to piss people off? I don't know.
I think you said a really important word here, which is just being open. Because whenever you're open, you're just still questioning and you're still saying, I don't know.
Right.
And I think that's the most...
Amen.
You know, that's the most humble, and really, I think the best way to go about this life is just to say, like, I don't know. There's bigger things coming. Like, I don't know how my life's going to go. You had no idea that you would be sitting here on my couch at this moment and have accomplished all the things that you did. Similarly, you don't necessarily know what's ahead of you romantically, right? And the amazingness that may come from that. So being open, I think, is really intelligent.
Amen. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, views change, ideas change, perspectives change for sure. Mine have changed so much even in the last couple of years. So I'm open. I definitely think that I'm open, and I think I'm more open than most people, actually. I think that most of the people who would challenge my non-traditional views, most of the traditional folks, especially with folks who are a little older than we are, I think they're really not open. I think they're the one. I think, you know, when I think about like, you know, people in my family, for example, the generation above me or the 2 generations above me, like, I think those are the people who feel so fixed in traditional ideas about romance and family structure that any deviance is just completely unintelligible to them. And I've had those conversations where I just see, you know, I don't feel that the openness that I feel and that I genuinely have is reciprocated, which is tough too. You know?
Yeah.
I joke with Henry, my roommate, a lot. Now I'm really just gonna be whatever. I don't care.
Hey, Henry.
And I joke with Henry a lot that I'm the most tolerant person I know. And I honestly, like, low-key feel that way.
I think you're pretty
You might
tolerant.
be more tolerant than me. Actually, I've learned a lot of my tolerance from you, honestly. I feel like I'm fucking open to shit and down and like don't have very few fixed ideas. Usually that looks like me challenging the norms. But I like to think I fancy myself an open book.
Yeah.
Am I digging myself a hole here?
No, I love it. I feel like you're pretty tolerant. And I think
Tolerant has also bad kind of connotation in terms
open,
of like,
just open to dialogue.
But I would use tolerant also. You know, tolerant has bad context, especially in terms of like gay shit, where like, I don't want to be tolerated for being gay. I want to be embraced, you know. And I of course embrace all kinds of sexualities and ideas. When I say tolerant, I mean like to even like more extreme shit that we would consider shit that we, the liberal progressives of New York City, even we might consider like fringe stuff. I feel like I'm I'm pretty tolerant. Like if there are things that I really don't agree with, but they're genuinely happening over there and they're not hurting anyone else, I'm probably tolerant to it. I mean, we were just talking about what is it called when brothers and sisters fuck?
Right. That when okay.
Yeah, like I don't know.
Familial sexuality.
Yeah, we were talking about that. I was having a conversation about that, and it's like, you know what? If that's your life, now it's one. This is what we were talking about, because it's one thing when it's like, if it's a guy and a girl, because then you could potentially have a risk for the child, right? Because if you guys have recessive genes or whatever, that theoretically is why we morally look down upon that, because it's not humane, because you're putting the child at risk. But what if it's two brothers and they're both gay and they're messing around?
Well, cousins,
they ain't gonna have a child.
And cousins used to marry all the time.
Right. I mean, yeah, exactly. So anyways, that's the kind of thing where it's like, that's not for me, but like, I would be tolerant of that. I wouldn't I wouldn't support a law banning that. You know what I'm saying? That's what I mean by tolerant.
Yeah.
I'm not going to embrace that. I'm not going to... Well, but then that raises questions. Like, am I going to celebrate that? I don't know. That's an interesting question. What becomes mainstream enough to merit celebrating versus, okay, I'm open and I'm progressive. Our keyword, I'm open, so I'll tolerate that. I don't know.
And then what's like inappropriate.
Right. And then what's just morally reprehensible.
Right.
What's unacceptable.
Because there's many people out there that have multiple wives, right? Like,
right.
I think it's...
Incest is the word.
Incest, right? There we go. Incest, hello. Yeah, I mean, I think Mormonism, right? I don't want to make this claim without knowing exactly, but I know that there's a sect of Christianity where like men have many wives, right? Right now, like in 2016. And some people would be like, that's crazy, right? Or a woman who decided, which is pretty radical right now, like, oh, I'm going to have many, many husbands, which is, I haven't really heard of happen, but I'm sure it happens too, right? Like there are people that partake in all these ways of behaving that we don't know of in, quote, the mainstream culture. But you're right, as long as it's not hurting anybody, right? I mean... So tolerating and then celebrating.
It's tricky.
Right. That being two different things. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. And then what becomes a celebration, right? Mm-hmm. Like, oh, is it the norm, the thing that we see in the movies, right? Mm-hmm. Like, is that the celebration, what the media portrays at us? Because we're kind of just like, we're creating culture all the time. People are like, oh, culture. No, humans right now, the ones on this planet, we're the ones creating, as you say, the narrative of what we're trying to emulate. But I think what you're saying and challenging in such a great way is like, these are all narratives and we can actually create whatever we want to create. Now, the societal pressure and sort of those ideas of, there's something wrong with me and I'm not that becomes the challenge, right? Because then we end up internalizing it and thinking there's something wrong with us.
And we create hierarchies.
Totally.
Where it's like, you have to be that on top, and that being that thing on top is the source of our individual authenticity and worthiness.
And success.
Absolutely. So, I mean, just to tie this together, like the hierarchy that I see and that I don't like, even though I am open to a traditional romantic relationship for myself, I see the ways in which individuals who do not have successful traditional romantic relationships, I see the way that they are, quote, less successful because they don't have that partner, that traditional partner. They're less valued. If you're married, you get a +1 when you're invited to a thing. Right. If you're not married, no other relationship that you have in your life is worthy of you having a +1 to bring to that thing. So you can come to that fucking wedding and feel sad and lonely by yourself, because now we're going to have a giant party celebrating the very institution that you were not worthy enough to have. And because you didn't have it, you can't bring anyone. Thanks so much. You know what I mean? And so I don't have a problem with the institution itself, or even with the celebration of the institution of itself. But I have a problem with the ways in which that institution and those relationship structures are hierarchized, I'm making that word up, and left to leave others trickling down and just kind of feel worth less. Not worthless, but worth less.
Yes. Where in actuality, and this is something I want to get into too, there is nothing that I believe that can make you feel less or or actually merits more or less worthiness as you as a human being. Now, society values different people very clearly, right? People who have more money are more valuable. White males are more valuable, right? But in actuality, I believe that each human being is equally valuable. And what's so heartbreaking is how, in such weird ways, we ignore that. In very harmful ways, and don't take care of each other as a human family.
Yeah.
And how much suffering exists because of this weird hierarchy and weird system we've created as a human species.
Power.
Yeah. Power. And power's sexy and power's hot, but I think so many people use their power as a means of putting themselves over the other people to make themselves feel better, when in the end they're going to die anyway. So, I mean, I think power for power's sake is almost like a cancer in some weird way, right? Like, you're alone at the top. You're alone at the top.
You're all right.
You're not in community. And I think what we really actually long for is a sense of connection, truly. I mean, I know they have all these CEOs talk about how at the end of the day, if you work so hard, but your relationships are shit and you end up dying from the crazy amount of stress that you have because you've just devoted your life to just insanity. Obviously not all CEOs, but sort of this intense drive for money and power. It just, like, to me, just seeing that just feels so wrong to me.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah. So anyway, talking about creativity and talking about validation and you as an artist and sort of the way that you get validated by performing is something I've been thinking about, right? If you have any sort of creative impulse or even a business, right? Like the validity that you get from sort of how other people respond to your work and how that can mess with your self-worth.
Yes.
And that's an interesting question. So I wanted to know, how that sort of shifted for you in the past few years. Around getting more and more exposure and how you're kind of grounding yourself amidst all that.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Because it could all go away tomorrow.
Yep.
I mean, I hope it doesn't, but that's the reality, right?
Oh,
like
definitely.
any of
especially in the music industry.
Exactly.
I mean, so I'm going to respond by talking a little bit about ego. What is a healthy ego is a question that I've been asking for a while. And I think that due to the success, quote unquote, I had, the academic success I had as a high schooler, which we talked about, I think early on I developed a sense of self-worth in a certain way that has helped me and projected me and really gave me an early boost to, working hard and feeling worthy and feeling like I have something to offer and contribute and being a leader. But at the same time, I still very much am recovering from the injuries of masculine and straight male dominated patriarchies that I felt excluded from pretty much from the time I was a little kid. And so it's been interesting, moving to New York and feeling more grown and more settled in my sexuality. And I really took, for a few years there, I was a Latin American studies major in college, and I was going to pursue academia and move back to South America.
You also speak multiple languages, if people don't know.
Yes. So, I had this sense of ego where I felt confident in myself. I was an openly gay, at the end of college, felt confident in myself. I was openly gay at this point. I was working hard. I was about to be a Yale graduate. But But I did not necessarily subscribe to the idea that I had something to say and other people should listen to what I have to say because that'll be good for them. But as an artist now, as a musician and as a songwriter, essentially that's what we're saying. We're saying, I'm dope. I wrote this song. I think you should listen to what I wrote, which would have been a preposterous idea to me even 5 years ago. I would have said, who the fuck are you to come tell me that I need to listen to your shit? You know, I would have said, what kind of narcissist are you that you think that? But I think that over the last 5 years, another piece of it that we can now maybe talk about a little bit is that I've developed faith. And I've developed this sense of greater purpose. I'm certainly by no means like, you know, now some religious extremist, but I do believe in God, for lack of a better word, or power, or whatever you want to call it. And I do believe that I have a purpose. I think that all of us have a purpose. And that has helped me. And again, maybe this is a defense mechanism too, where I'm actually just such a narcissist and I just want everyone to look at me on stage while I write my songs and do my dances. And I just want everyone to stare at me and I just want their attention. I'm actually like a personality disorder, Donald Trump, crazy narcissist. And I tell myself it's okay because it's actually God giving me the songs and I'm here to cure
I love
the
how
people.
you literally question everything.
Yeah. It gets tiring.
I love it.
Low-key, it gets tiring and then you mix in pot and it's just too much. But I do believe that I've developed faith in myself, which does allow me to feel like the attention I'm getting and the people listening. I do believe that, and I've had moments where I've written these songs and they just come, and it's like,
Wow.
I really do. It sounds weird, but it's like the song existed already, and like just came through my brain into my hand onto the paper. Like there are a few songs I've written that are literally like 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Which ones?
High Frequency was like one of those songs where like I had the hook actually, but then like the rest of the song, like I sat down one day and was like, I got this whole song. This other song that I don't do anymore, but you maybe have seen a show, it's called The Way of the World. Do you remember that song?
I think so.
The way of the world is not black and white. Whatever. It's like a Michael Jackson vibe. It's about topping and bottoming. But that song came literally in a flash, like the whole thing. Anyways, why am I saying that? I'm saying that because I sometimes feel like a vessel for that work. And I feel like it comforts me to feel like, okay, this isn't just me. This is like a larger purpose that music and art serves to uplift, to unite, to facilitate community, to ask questions, to shine the flashlight on the thing in the corner that we all don't want to see, but it is there. I feel I'm getting off topic. What was the question?
I love
you asked
that.
about
No, I think that's amazing. So, yeah, you've been starting to connect more with this entity, maybe that's coming through you.
Yeah, I don't like the word entity. I don't
Energy?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't want to play too much into the narrative, like the traditional religious narrative that like there is a God and I am a vessel and He put it through me. Like it's not that, but it's like 1% that.
Well, some will call it the muse too. You know,
Right.
when writers get downloads or whatever, it's like the muse sort of came through me.
Yeah, and it is like a download. Exactly. So I don't know. You asked about how I'm managing like keeping grounded while kind of gaining more of a platform.
Yeah, and knowing that your worth isn't dependent on like how successful you are in this next single that comes out, right? And then like your whole world breaks down. Like that's an interesting thing.
That's a great question. That's a separate point that I love. I mean, yeah, we were saying before over lunch that like when I first started really doing music in New York, it was just me. No one was watching. It was just me and I made some shit and I had a cool show. So then gained attention and I had more people at my cool show, band and everything, and more people came. And now, a couple years later, I have a team and a record label and managers and all that. And now people are watching, not just my team, but like fans are watching. People are listening. The internet is listening, And again, like it's not like I have some crazy platform. Like I had like, I put out one EP and we're growing and we're building. But even if there's one person listening,
Exactly.
it's like now you're watching.
Right.
And so this goes back to the dress. Is it intentional or not? Because if you're watching, what am I wearing to yoga class? I just put it on. I'm not thinking about it. I'm just going to work. Okay, well, I'm just going to work, but I know that there's someone watching me.
Yeah.
Even if I'm just doing what quote unquote organically, naturally is coming out of me, that is organically, naturally coming out of me with the knowledge that someone is watching me produce it. And so there definitely is a sense of like just trusting, again, faith in myself, that I'm dope, that I'm good, that even if the single does fail and flop, the next one will be better. And that my worth is not defined by plays. And it's hard because talk about like comparison and jealousy. I mean, I have a lot of friends in the music industry who, numerically are doing a lot better than I am. They have X million plays on X songs and whatever, and I only have this many on that many, whatever, and it's such a numbers driven thing now that I really do actually try to ignore the numbers. People ask me, how's the EP doing? How many sales has it done? And I honestly, usually I don't know the answer to those questions. Like, I'm lucky to be in a position where like I have a team of people that are kind of handling that part of it. And I try my best with some success to not be part of it and just focus on like making cool stuff and saying what needs to be said and reflecting the times and asking challenging questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really healthy too. Like, we were talking before about having a team so that you can really, I think if you're a musician, everything is business these days. Everything is marketing these days. That's the truth.
Right.
And that's also the challenge.
Right. It's true. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so you're not.
Then I'm sorry to interrupt you, but then I think
Please.
about like musicians in New York who I admire so much, who I think are like so amazing. Like, they have levels of musicianship that I dream of one day even scratching, but they don't have, a record deal or whatever for one reason or another. And I say to myself, oh God, like, do I even deserve this? Like, I know someone better than me. Like, fuck, like, should I even have this? Why don't they have this? Like, I should just give this to them. Like, what did I do right or wrong to end up here? How does my whiteness play into this? How does my fucking Yale degree, how do all the privileges I've had played into my success? It's complicated,
It's super complicated. And I think art is subjective, right? That's the thing about art is that, one is one. So you can't argue that. But with art, like there's people that are going to love your work and there's people that are going to be like, no, I don't resonate with this at all. So, yeah.
And there have been haters. Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Tell me a little bit about the haters.
I mean, there have been a few people, like we've done sponsored ads on Facebook, and we've had a few like comments where like people have written nasty things. People have written mean things.
What have they written?
Like homophobic shit, or like, what is this? Or he's so ugly, or like, what the fuck is he wearing? Or, over different posts. So like we have a clip of the Colors music video that we'll put out with like a little ad, and like we'll target different on Facebook, you can like do targeted ads to different demographics. And sometimes we'll do experiments where like we'll target this group or that group or that group. It's very clear that certain groups are down and other groups are taking the time out of their day to like write negative shit in the comments. But you know what? I have to say, and I even have this in a lyric of an unreleased song, doing something right when I love it and you hate it. Like, I just feel like, to me, that's like a little pat on my back, honestly, because I know that what I'm doing is meaningful and deep and powerful and is going to change the world. And meaningful, deep things that change the world don't happen with unanimity. Like, they happen when there is tension, when people don't like it, when people are calling it out. Like, that's how change happens. So haters gonna hate. You know what I mean? T Swift said it best. Let them hate. And I'm just gonna keep going, In some ways, we even joke around with the band that I think like new fans who might be into my shit, I sometimes wonder if they would be more into it when they see like the mean comments, because they're like, oh, this guy's legit. He has haters. You know what I mean? It's kind of, you wouldn't expect that. It's kind of not what you expect, but I take pride in that.
As you should, because it's provoking. And again, we talked about this at the start. There's something seriously going on within that person. Because, I mean, I cannot imagine going on YouTube who are these trolls that
people live on the internet trolling. I don't know.
Like, who has time to go? I mean, what did that person have to go through internally, in that moment to judge and then have the wherewithal to write something so specific and negative to you? I mean, it's actually kind of sad, right?
It's crazy, yeah.
So not taking that personally and knowing that that's not a reflection of you ever. It's, if anything, it's a reflection of just their internal state and what they're going through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited for 2017.
Tell us a little bit about 2017. What's going to happen?
So a lot is happening right now. I'm working on a new album. So the record deal I'm on, we put out the EP and then now I put out a full-length album. So I'm working on that new full-length album, which will come out summer 2017. But there'll be some singles before that. And I'm doing another big show in New York at Bowery Ballroom on January 24th. So all the New York crew is invited to that.
Come on. I'll try and go.
I have a few other events happening in January that I'm excited about. I booked my first event, a charity event that I'm playing at. It's not announced yet, so I don't know if I can talk about it, but it's cool in that it's the first time that I've been booked to play an event and they're paying me just to be there and play.
Beautiful.
The people aren't coming to see me, they're coming to go to this event and surprise, we have an emerging artist, Michael Blume, playing, which that to me is that's a new tick mark for me. I haven't done that kind of thing, so that's really exciting. Some more touring coming up that we're just confirming and getting ready to announce, and then also some exciting performances coming up this summer that are not yet announced, but I'm very excited about them too.
What at the summer? I want to know.
Yeah. I'll tell you offline.
Okay.
And then the album will come out. So I'm working with a few different producers and musicians now on the new music, and really exploring what the sound of this album is going to be and what I want to say and what I need to say, and just trying to write a lot of songs, and for every 5 I write, maybe 1 is a keeper, that kind of thing, and trying to really just go through the process of writing a lot and throwing a lot away so that the diamonds come out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
You have some of the best work ethic that I know from anybody, and it's true. I mean, you're rolling your eyes, but that is freaking true.
I used to be more. When I was 18, that was the peak.
Yeah, I mean, it was so intense. Michael was also the head of the a cappella group that we were at in high school, and I was in that, which was fun.
And you had many lovely solos.
Thank you. But yeah, just
I feel why don't you sing on this show? Ellie has an amazing voice. She doesn't talk about it.
Thanks, Michael. I'm trying to bring it back. Maybe I will. The process of creating and the process of writing, like you're saying, sometimes it just comes through you. Sometimes you just have to sit and do the work. How does that work for you? Do you have a day-to-day? I'm sitting down and writing right now. How does it work?
Working on this question. I mean, one of the big challenges in moving to New York, especially for me as someone that did have success in structured environments, and we've talked about this, I was able to really succeed in high school with classes and due dates and projects and semesters, and in college, same thing. And then I moved to New York and I was like, okay, I'm a freelance musician. I could sleep till 2 p.m. if I want. I could smoke weed all day. I mean, I have to do something to make money. But besides that, I don't have a boss per se. And now that I'm full-time doing music, a lot of times there are days where it's I don't have a thing on my calendar. And the thing I need to be doing that day is writing and sitting. And a lot of times that just looks like me alone in my room at the piano, in my little studio setup.
Do you turn off your phone?
Sometimes I do. Yeah. Actually, today just deleted Facebook app from my phone because, girl, it's too much.
It's too much.
Facebook on the app. I had a conversation with my friend Camille yesterday. We were both just why are we looking at puppy videos at 2 a.m? Like, what is that? Like, I have a career to build here. Why am I looking at puppy videos?
Puppies are cute.
They are, but like one puppy video every 6 months is enough. If I thought I'm looking at multiple a day, it's like, it's too much. So it is an ongoing question. It's an ongoing challenge for me, this question of discipline and self-organization and time, you know, and I sometimes am envious of my friends and family and colleagues that have more traditional work structures. That said, I think having a traditional work structure also plays into having a traditional romantic structure, because then you go home to your wife and kids and have dinner. I mean, just all of the traditional structures in our economy and health and housing and education systems work together to support white patriarchy, right? I mean, so in some ways I also feel like, right. In some ways I feel like my, just the fact that I am a freelance musician is in and of itself an act of resistance, and it is in and of itself an act of protest.
Totally.
You know, and I'm lucky to be in a position where, you know, I have a record deal and publishing deal, and I'm able to live in New York City as a full-time musician. But I'm aware that that also contributes to my queer identity, you know?
Totally.
The fact that I don't have a 9 to 5.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't know if you get this from your parents or other people of like, well, like kind of like wishing maybe at some point that would have been the root.
I mean, I've definitely had conversations with people who, yeah.
And not to make them wrong or anybody wrong.
Well, but I've definitely had conversations with individuals where I can sense their lament. I can sense like, oh, this nice Jewish boy that went to Yale.
Exactly.
And he could have been whatever. But,
doctor, a lawyer.
Right, doctor, lawyer. But instead, I'm, you know, like a gay ass musician in New York. And
You're you.
And I wouldn't change a thing.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Beautiful. Anything else you want to share?
I want to know what other questions you had on your note. I feel like you didn't even look at them. Ellie had this gorgeous list of questions. She hasn't even looked at it this whole time.
Let me see. Because we were just going at it.
I knew you had some other shit on there.
This one's good. Okay. So kind of going back to the idea of when we were younger, I think we kind of put on like airs of confidence a lot, right? Like in high school, like there was like we're the shit, right? Like we're confident, you know, like we know like how great we are. I know that I did that at like SVPA and
SVPA was our high school theater club.
School
of Visual and Performing Arts.
That's right. Which we both got awards in, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, the difference between confidence and like true confidence and arrogance and posturing. Because I feel like as a performer,
I don't know. Yeah.
because as a performer, like you have to be confident. Like there's going to be hundreds of eyes on you when you're on stage, right? And so you have to be confident. But when is it like manufactured confidence, which is sometimes what you need, or posturing and sort of it being fake? And when is it like real and authentic? And maybe the two get blurred all the time. And I think the two get blurred all the time in reality. But I'm just in general, like thinking about that, like what is true confidence and what is kind of like sort of a fake posturing?
Right. I don't know. I think this is the theme of our conversation here. This goes back to the dress. This goes back to the yoga clothes. What is authenticity? You know, I feel one of the things that's been challenging for me is that I feel like I can be authentic in so many different spaces, you know, and that authenticity looks different in each of those spaces. So for example, on Instagram, what pictures am I putting on Instagram? What am I not putting? How am I curating myself for Instagram? How am I then curating myself for my Grindr profile? How am I curating myself for online dating? How am I curating myself for a first date? How am I curating myself to come hang out with you? How am I curating myself to go to Thanksgiving and see my family?
Yes.
And frankly, I'm at a point now, and I'm proud to say that I feel pretty comfortable and confident and authentic in all of those spaces, despite the fact that you might choose two of those spaces randomly and find some pretty strong contradictions. So you know, it's hard because I don't know anymore. If all of these things, if blue is authentic and red is authentic and yellow is authentic, is there a real authentic? Or maybe I'm just lying to myself and I'm actually not authentic in any of those spaces. I'm just tricking myself into thinking I am. And none of them are really authentic. I don't know anymore what authentic is, which is simultaneously so scary and so like dark and like kind of sometimes I'm like, well, then who am I? And it's completely empowering because I can be and do and say anything I want.
That's amazing. And that's a privilege.
It's absolutely a privilege.
Yeah.
It's important. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a privilege of my, you know, economic and educational and male and white status for sure.
Because there's people in Burma just a few years ago that if they spoke against the government and they said anything,
that's
right?
political.
Like,
I'm talking about people in New York.
yeah.
People in Manhattan who don't have the privilege of chameleonization the way I do, you know? But it's scary sometimes because if I can be and say and do anything I want, then it's like, what do I want to be and say and do? Who the fuck am I then?
What do I stand for?
Right. Oh, interesting. It's funny because interesting. I'm glad you said that because I feel like I'm just having this discovery now. I feel like even though I may present in a lot of different ways that feel authentic, I do feel like maybe one of the things that makes them all feel authentic is the fact that I am consistent in my ideas. So I might like dress down for family Thanksgiving just to like not freak
Freak out the aunt.
Freak out my they all see the picture. That's what's weird is like my family sees the pictures and the videos of me doing me, but they perceive that, this is a conversation I've had with my parents actually, they perceive that as like show Michael. And yes, like I probably will put on a show outfit, but like it's hard because then maybe I just like want to wear a dress to a family event or just a chill hang. It's like, it's not like my gender fluidity is only part of the show. It's part of my day-to-day political practice. And so, but at the same time, like most recently, I've found myself consciously, but authentically and organically choosing to wear more traditional clothes to a family gathering just because, you know what, I'm tired and I don't feel like explaining myself. And sometimes I don't feel like raising the questions because I'm tired and it's exhausting to answer them over and over and over. So does that mean that I'm inauthentic when I'm home and I'm wearing something I wouldn't wear somewhere else? I'm dressed more mask just for my family because I don't feel like answering the questions. And mind you, my more mask, you know, at these family events for me is still more, it's still left of center.
Your masculinity is what you're saying.
Yeah, when I say more mask, like, you know, I might dress just less flamboyantly or less provocatively or less unusually, less uniquely. You can't really be yet less unique, but you know, more normcore, which is still left of how most of the people in my family might dress. I think that
family's a whole interesting big rabbit hole too, because they've known you your whole life, right? So
yeah, and that's been interesting because I have definitely had it's been a transition. Like I wasn't always intentionally or unintentionally challenging gender norms, but I've realized that that's kind of my response to the pain and the discrimination and the lack of inclusion that I've felt has been to find the new confidence and to find my own confidence and to find my own self-love and develop my own taste and my own interest and do things how I want to do. And then it becomes, well, are you just doing that to provoke us? Are you just doing that to mess with us? Are you just doing that? And it's like, I don't know. I'm just doing it because I want to do it because it makes me feel good. And if it doesn't make you feel good, why? Why is this bothering you? Why does it bother you so much that I use the word lover in a new way?
Yeah.
Why? Let's say I am doing that to provoke. Clearly I'm succeeding.
Right.
I've provoked.
Right.
So why? If I teased you, Ellie, about your jeans are too tight or something, I'm not going to provoke you. You're going to be like, whatever, I don't care. But if I found something that you actually cared about and provoked you, then you'd respond. So when I get responses from these provocations, that is in and of itself, it's kind of interesting to me because it's like, okay, well, clearly something I'm provoking, whether or not I'm intending to provoke, I am provoking. And it's working.
Something's going on.
Yeah, you clearly care about this thing
Yeah.
a lot. Otherwise, you wouldn't respond you would just brush it off.
Yeah. I mean, another word is like triggered, maybe.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there's always something interesting going on under the surface anytime we are provoked by something. And I think what that merits is to look internally and say, why does this bother me so much? Why am I so affected by
what
this?
I aim to do, yeah.
Why am I so affected by this in this moment? And that
What rules am I following deeply? What ideas am I holding on to so tightly that this provocation is causing a disturbance for me?
Right. Totally. I think it's very brave what you're doing, because I feel like when we go to sort of reinvent ourselves,
what you're doing is brave.
Thank you. When we go to reinvent ourselves, what we're saying is, I really want to see like what is real and like what wants to come out. And like you're saying, really asking the question, who am I? Just asking that question is so powerful. And knowing that we can reinvent ourselves. Like there is no solid Michael Blume version. The Michael Blume, I mean, yes, there's, I think, some things that probably have stayed the same, but you're not the same person you were in high school. You're not, right?
Correct.
And you're not, and then before that, you know, you weren't the same person as you were in kindergarten. So like, how do we keep this, you know, again, this word opening and this continual exploration of who we are as human beings? I mean, that's one of the most beautiful things, is that we can reinvent ourselves. And then if we don't hold so tightly to this like identity of I am this dot, you know, period.
Right.
Just the, I think the really the beauty that can come from that, because it, to me, it just means that we're still growing and we're still exploring, and that's we're open, and that's, I think, why we're like what makes human beings so incredible and interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Amen.
And you're doing that right now.
I'm trying.
Me too. Cool. I think that's pretty much all I had. So do you have anything else that you want to leave the listeners with? Anything I didn't ask you that you kind of wanted to go to?
We definitely covered a lot.
I mean, there's always more.
There's always more. I mean, we didn't really touch on the current American political crisis.
We did not.
We did indirectly.
We did. It's true.
But
anything else on your mind or in your heart? What's going on?
I guess just like, this is kind of dark, but like, I struggle with loneliness a lot. I think many of us in New York do. I think like it's easy to like look and sound and pretend that we're not lonely, because like you can just post a picture, or you know, you're in the subway, you're with people, you're busy, whatever. But like, especially in what I'm doing, for me, my personal experience with it, you know, I have close friends, I have lovers, I have managers. But at the end of the day, it's only me. It's only me that really is fully seeing and experiencing like my feelings converting into music, converting into a show, converting into people seeing it, converting into t-shirts, converting into money, converting into a record deal. Like, and I sometimes wish that there was a way to fully share that. And maybe this was, you know, maybe a traditional romantic partner would be that. I don't think it would be. I've never had one, so I can't really say. But the loneliness that I'm describing, that I'm talking about, is one that I think is more just a fixture of the human condition, especially like people who create things, especially people who create things on their own. Not to say that I work with amazing other musicians and artists and deeply collaborative, But at the end of the day, like the project has my name on it. You know, it's my vision. I'm the executive director, an artistic director, and if it's good or bad, or if I like it or don't like it, like how I sit with the work at the end of the day is like how I sit with it. And sometimes even when I sit well with it, even when I love what I made or even when I'm proud, sometimes there's a loneliness of like being proud of what I've done, but not having anyone to share it with. Because it's like, well, I did that. Sometimes I wonder if I like should be in a band where like, and I'm in a band, like I have an amazing band and it's collaborative again, but like, you know, my band works in the way that like I write these songs and we come together and make them work, as opposed to like a band that, you know, rehearses and writes songs together and stuff. But even then I wonder if there's like, I just think we're lonely. I don't know. This is like kind of an unbaked thought here.
No, I think it's a cake. I think it's pretty formed.
I don't know. So that's one thing. It also just got dark. Like winter in New York is so dark and cold. But because I don't want to end on that note, I'm also going to say something else, which is that through my loneliness and through everything else, I also like, I am hopeful. I just believe perhaps irrationally that like people are good and that like good will win, love conquers hate, all that shit. Like I do believe that. I think that's what drives me at the end of the day. Like, because like you said, we're all gonna die. So like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm smart. I could have just gotten a business degree and like gotten a finance job and like been making six figures and like had a cute little gay husband and like vacation in the Caribbean. Like I could still do that.
You can do anything.
But I believe I have hope that like good wins, and I think it wins by us doing things for each other and like listening and having each other and like trying to be there. And for me, the way I'm doing that is making music. And I do believe that my music has changed the world and will continue to change the world. Which is like, so just like, again, I'm rolling my eyes at myself saying that. It's like, okay, bitch, well, it's not ending the civil war in Syria. Like, honestly, like literally millions of people are being killed and misplaced a couple thousand miles from here. And I'm over here singing songs. We're over here doing this radio podcast. You know, so I don't know. But I have to choose then to be like, okay, well, my music is going to do good stuff. And I think that's what drives through the loneliness, through the confusion, through all of it.
And ultimately, your music is the most authentic, I think, call to connect.
Thank you.
I think that is, it's, hey, come connect through this.
I love your focus on connection. I agree. Yeah.
Hear me sing, but they're responding, right? Like,
Right.
they're hearing, they're taking it in. So that's the relationship that exists.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that you believe people are good, because I believe that too.
Yeah.
And even the whole hate, love trumps hate or whatever. Hate is just, again, I think masked fear. When people hate other people, I think it's because we just are not willing to understand where they're coming from, and yeah, like we said about the people that are trolling the internet, like those people are like not having a good day. Like they're really suffering in that moment. So if we can keep remembering, like there's like that person who, made a comment towards you that was maybe a hater or whatever, there's goodness in them too, right?
Amen.
And they're just confused in that moment.
Right.
And defensive about something. So if we can really keep that thread of there's goodness in everybody, which is what you said and so beautifully and eloquently put, I think that's the thing that will save humanity. Just that belief, right? Because we don't need more technology. We don't need bigger planes. We don't need, you know, like we don't need that. What we need is a change of consciousness and how we treat each other as human beings, and knowing that we truly are a human family. I mean, I really feel that. I think you do too through your music in such
Definitely.
beautiful ways.
Definitely. Toda, mommy.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
mommy.
for having me.
Mommy is a word that we used to call each other a lot. It's just like
It's an
sweetie.
Hebrew word for like, yeah.
Beautiful. Awesome. Anything else?
New York City, Bowery Ballroom, January 24th.
Hell yeah.
The EP, When I Get It Right, is available on all music platforms. Check it out. New music coming really soon. I can't wait to share it. And my name is Michael Blume, Blume, like you and me. You can get more of my info at mblumemusic.com. And I thank you, Ellie Aaron, for having me on the Ellie Aaron Hour. It's been a treat.
You're so welcome, my dearest. All right, everybody, we're sending love from our hearts to your heart, and hope you're doing okay wherever you are. Hope you had a good holiday and are happy about being in 2017, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. You can find me at ellieaaron.com, where you'll find any of the links we talked about on today's show. See you next week, everybody. And until then, may all beings in the whole universe be free and feel loved. And that includes you. Feel the passion, but don't forget the compassion. Namaste.